The session will be recorded. Fine. Good afternoon, all of you. Uh, I welcome you to the 8th session of AICT Atal sponsored FDP on computational fluid dynamics for beginners, uh, offered by Government College of Engineering and Research, Ausari, District Pune. Myself, Professor Sevatkar, will be dealing with the session. The session title is Convection Diffusion Problems in Computational Fluid Dynamics and Heat Transfer. So far, we have dealt with the overview of computational fluid dynamics, then the governing equations in the computational fluid dynamics. The first was dealt with by Professor Atul Sharma, second by Professor Nangaonkar. Then we had a session on the heat conduction problem or diffusion problem in fluid flow and heat transfer. And we had a hands-on session dealt with by Professor Togule. And in the morning, we dealt with the pure convection problem in computational fluid dynamics and heat transfer. Our objective is, of course, as I said several times, is to understand the finite volume methodology to obtain the solution for the variables like velocity, pressure, temperature. So far, we dealt with only temperature. That is, we consider a situation wherein the heat transfer is involved, but when we'll be dealing with the solution of entire Navier-Stokes equation, we'll be also dealing with the fluid flow problem, where we will try to understand how to determine the velocities and pressures. So in this particular session, we are now going to deal with a convection diffusion problem. As I told earlier, the entire Navier-Stokes equation consists of the various terms like convection, pressure term, the diffusion term, and maybe the body force term, source term. We cannot go ahead with the solution for entire Navier-Stokes equation in a first go. We need to go ahead step by step so that we understand the entire finite volume methodology. So we started with the conduction or diffusion problem. Then we dealt with pure convection problem. Now we will be dealing with convection diffusion problem. And tomorrow we will be dealing with the solution of entire Navier-Stokes equation. So that's the theme of going ahead for the FDP on CFD for beginners. We are mainly focusing on the fundamentals of CFD, the basics of CFD, so that once these basics are clear, you will be able to use to start with your own code, or maybe you can use the softwares effectively. Fine. So if we want to deal with the convection diffusion problem, we will be handling the slug flow problem, which is a fundamental problem in heat transfer, for which the analytical solution is available. What is slug flow problem? In a slug flow problem, the flow occurs through channel. which is having certain length, let's say L1, and the depth is L2. There is a flow entering with velocity u infinity and v velocity 0 and temperature T infinity. The temperature of the fluid which is entering the channel is T infinity. And the temperature of the plates is TW. Here the temperature of the plate is TW. We assume that the same velocity distribution which is at the entrance is maintained in the entire flow domain. In fact, if the fluid is in the real situation, the parabolic velocity profile develops as the flow goes ahead. However, here we assume that the flow velocity remains same in the entire domain. Even at the exit, we have u is equal to u infinity and v is equal to 0. However, temperature, which is a convected variable, is changing, and the temperature distribution in the domain is to be determined. And thus we assume here at that exit, the temperature variation is represented by this equation dt by dx is equal to 0. So that's the problem, and we want to understand how the temperature distribution looks like. If I take a particular section, let's say at any of the section, how the temperature will change. So this problem is called flux flow in a plane channel, and we will be trying to understand the solution of the same. Now, do understand here we have both convection as well as diffusion. There is a diffusion of heat. So the variable is diffuse as well as convected. And as I said, the analytical solution for such kind of a problem is available, which will be shared at the end. And the numerical solution will be compared with that of the analytical solution to ensure that the methodology which we will be adopting here is working well. The grid generation, the first and the most important step is the discrete representation of the domain here and the grid generation. Again, what we do, we draw some vertical lines, we draw some horizontal lines, and we locate the cell centers. There are yellow cell centers, which are interior cell centers, and border cell centers. And there are blue cell centers, which represent the cells at the boundary. Blue cell centers are lying on the boundary. The cell centers are designated with the help of running indices I and J along X and Y directions respectively. And there are east neighboring cell center, west neighboring cell center, north neighboring and south neighboring cell centers, as we did earlier also. So these vertical and horizontal lines help us to divide the entire domain into small control volumes. And these control volumes are called cells, which are represented in terms of cell centers, and cell centers are represented by I, J running indices. Again, in the same fashion as we did earlier, we obtain the geometrical information when we do the grid generation. The geometrical information, what we do, we find out the x and y coordinates of point under consideration. So we need to find out the x and y coordinate of all the cell centers in the entire domain. We need to calculate delta x and delta y values for all the cells. We also need to calculate the distance between cell center under consideration and neighboring cell center. Like this is delta xw, delta xe, delta ys, and delta delta yn and delta ys. These are the expressions which we can use for determination of the distances between neighboring cell centers and cell centers under consideration. We also need to calculate the areas, which we have discussed several times. So delta AC minus delta AC is equal to minus delta SW, which is equal to delta Y, and delta SN equal to minus delta SS equal to delta X. We also need to obtain the volume of the cell, which is given by delta X into delta Y. So this is a grid generation. In the software, these parameters are calculated automatically, but when you are doing your own coding, you need to calculate all these parameters for each and every cell. Next is the governing equation. Now look at the equation carefully. We are considering energy equation only because my velocity field is known to me. So I need not to calculate the u and v velocities. The entire domain, I know the velocity field. So I need not to solve the momentum equation. Only thing I need to solve is the energy equation, because we want to find out the temperature distribution. We want to find out the values of temperature at all the cell centers, yellow cell centers. On the blue cell center, the values of temperatures are known to us. So this is the governing equation in which the first term is unsteady term, the second term is a convection term, and on to other side we have a conduction term. So this is convection conduction problem. There is no heat generation as such. So we will try to understand how the conduction convection problem can be solved using finite volume methodology. So we will go ahead with the discretization of this equation. We'll apply this each and every term to a small control volume, and by doing so, we will convert the exact representation of each and every term into that of an algebraic term. So this is unsteady, this is convection term, and this is diffusion term. The first term is unsteady term. We have actually seen how to discretize unsteady term. I'm just repeating it here. Here is the exact representation of the unsteady term as applied to a small control volume of volume delta Vp. So the exact representation is like this: Cp integral delta Vp into del by del T of rho T into dV. In fact, rho is constant. We can take it out of the integral sign as well. Can take it out of the derivative sign and integral sign. This is a volumetric integral, and this derivative del by del T of rho T, it can have different values at different locations, but we assume the mean value, and we assume that that mean value is constant. If we take it out of the integral sign, what is left inside the integral sign is dV, and then integral of dV is delta Vp, and what is outside the integral sign is Cp into del by del T of rho T, mean. We introduce first approximation by, we call it as volume averaging. We assume that this mean value prevails at P. So I'm just converting this derivative into the derivative at point P. So this is approximately written as Cp into del by del T of rho T at point P into delta Vp. Then second approximation we introduced to calculate the temporal derivative at cell center. So this is my temporal derivative at cell center. This derivative is replaced in terms of Tp at n plus 1 minus Tp at nth level divided by delta T. Rho is constant, it is taken out of the derivative. So rho delta Vp Cp into Tp at n plus 1 minus Tp at nth level divided by delta T. That represents my discretized form of unsteady term. This is discretized unsteady term. I hope you understand it. Next term in the equation is convection term. Its exact representation, if it is applied to a small control volume delta Vp, then its exact representation is integral over delta Vp of divergence of rho u vector t into dv. So now again, this is my volumetric integral can be converted into surface integral using Gauss divergence theorem. It says that if the volumetric integral is converted into surface integral, dv changes to ds, that is volumetric operator changes to surface operator, and the divergence goes away. So what we are left with inside the integral sign is rho t un dot n cap into ds. This un u vector is its dot product with n cap is taken, so that this u velocity is always normal. We get the u velocity which is always normal to the face of the control volume. So we can designate it as un, u normal velocity. Now this integral is written for all the four surfaces together. We can separate it out for each of the surfaces like east, west, north, and south. So delta SE, delta SW, integral over delta SE, integral over delta SW, integral over delta SN, integral over delta SS. All those can be added together. I am writing that same thing in the summation form. So summation over the faces east, west, north, south, integral over delta SF, rho T UN. So T is of course at a face. Rho T UN into DS. DSF this has to be. So we introduce now the first approximation by assuming that this T is constant on a particular face and the same value prevails over the entire surface, and UN is also constant. So we take T and UN, and rho is of course constant. We take all these quantities out of integral sign. What is left inside the integral sign is DSF, and then among these, this quantity is my mass flux across the face, either east face, north face, or south face, or west face. This quantity is TF, which is the value of a convected variable on the face. We can calculate this by using convection schemes, which we have studied so far in the last session. And integral of delta SF, integral over delta SF of ds is delta SF. So mass flux into convected variable into delta S. This altogether gives me the total convection occurring across a particular face, either east, west, north, or south. But if I take only this particular quantity, that is FMF into TF, that is nothing but my convection flux. Convection flux into area is a total convection. So this is my FC F5, that is the convection flux across a particular face, and convection of phi. So that phi can be either U, V, or T. If it is energy equation, it is T. If it is X momentum equation, it is U. If it is Y momentum equation, it is V. And delta SF represents the area. So flux into area is the total convection. If I take it for a particular face, it will be the total convection across one of the faces. But if I take the summation over east, west, north, south faces, this will be a total convection across all the faces, which I can write it as Cp pi. So convection. So Cp pi represents the convection term. So this is summation over the faces east, west, north, south of FMF, TF, delta SF. The TF value is to be calculated using convection scheme. We have seen various convection schemes when we dealt with pure convection. We can use either first order, second order, first order of wind, second order of wind, or quick convection scheme, or maybe central difference scheme. So once you know this CP5, once you know the values of all the areas, FMF is known to you, TF you can calculate using convection schemes. This TF you can calculate from the cell center values. So once you calculate it for all the phases, you can calculate total CP5. That is the total convection occurring across all the phases of a control volume under consideration. So this is FCFT is a convection flux, convection of a heat when I use T. Similarly, I can write an expression for CPT, that is convection of heat. This phi can be either temperature, it can be u velocity, or it can be v velocity. If I use u velocity, v velocity, it is a convection of momentum. If I use T, it is a convection of heat. So I am sharing with you here the physical representation of CPT. It occurs across all the outgoing, all the outward heat flux. The outward heat flux is by conduction, and here we are assuming that the outward one, the outward convection, the outward convection occurring is considered as positive. So for example, let's say I want to find out CPT across east face, then it is mass flux across east face multiplied by CP multiplied by TE at east face multiplied by delta SC. And this TE is of course required to be determined using convection scheme. Here it is FMN, that is mass flux across north face, into CP into TN, which is to be determined using convection scheme, into delta S. Mass flux into CP, MCPT into area, MCPT into area. So this is my total convection or net convection heat transfer rate out of a control volume. The one which is going out is considered as positive. CPT. This is the diagrammatic representation to understand how to calculate CPT. So we can directly calculate from this physical law. The next term is diffusion term, which is the exact representation. Integral over delta V K grad square T dV is my exact representation. This is volumetric integral can be converted into surface integral. So K into integral over delta S grad T, because one of the grad has gone. So I'm left with one grad. dV is now converted to ds, and the volumetric integral is converted to surface integral. This is again the Gauss divergence theorem. K is out of course. So this integral is for all the four faces. I can disintegrate that and I can write it in the summation form. Summation over east, west, north, south faces of integral over delta SF into del T by del N. This grad is written as del T by del in the normal direction. Del T by del N into DSF. We assume that this particular gradient is constant for this particular gradient prevails over the entire face. Although this gradient can be determined in terms of cell center values, its values at the center of the face will be known to us, but we assume that the same gradient prevails over the entire face. and it's constant, and we just take it out of the integral sign. What is left inside the integral sign is DSF. And that integral of DSF is delta SF. So now the first approximation is included, incorporated as summation over east, west, north, south faces, k del t by del n at a particular face into integral delta SF DSF. And this DSF is further written as integral of DSF is delta SF. And this quantity which I am talking about, k into temperature gradient, is a diffusion flux or conduction heat transfer rate in terms of flux. So I designate it as FDFT, that is diffusion of heat across the face and across east face, north, south faces if I add together. And the corresponding, so diffusion flux across a particular face multiplied by corresponding area gives me total diffusion across a particular face. And if I sum it up for east, west, north, south faces, what I obtain is a total diffusion. I can write it like this. Total diffusion can be written as summation over the faces east, west, north, south, FDFT delta SF. That's my total diffusion of heat. This is FDFT. This is DPT when I'm saying it is total diffusion of heat across all the faces of the control volume. And it can be written as this. These terms can be written, we have seen in the discretized form, as K into TE minus TP upon delta X into delta S plus TP minus TW upon del XW to delta SW. Tn minus Tp upon del Y into delta Sn, Tp minus Ts upon del S delta S into delta Ss. We have seen this equation, which is now in the discretized form. So what if I if from the initial guess itself, the values known to us from initial condition, from those values I can calculate the total diffusion occurring across all the phases of control. There is a message saying that PPTs are not visible. Is that clear to you? Is it that? Is it that the PPTs are not visible?
No, sir, it is clearly visible.
So Abhijit Kausal has written PPTs are not visible.
It is visible, sir.
Is it not visible to anybody else? No, so it's visible. Professor Abhijit, you may be having some problem at your end. Please check, because every other participant is saying that it is visible.
Okay, sir, I will check, sir, because. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, sir, I will check. No problem.
No
Thank you.
So this is the diffusion, total diffusion. This is how we calculate the total diffusion. Total diffusion of a heat which we can obtain. I'm showing the same term in the physical form. I mean, physically we can directly obtain the equation, this equation. I mean, that was using a Gauss divergence theorem, but here we know the physical expression for heat conduction, which is always given in terms of flux into area. So this flux can be written in terms of minus k dt by dn, that is temperature gradient into thermal conductivity. That's from Fourier law of heat conduction. So from that I can consider the diffusion inward heat flux by conduction can be written as minus QE into delta X, and minus QE is written as QE is written as minus K dt by dx here. Similarly, Qn is written as minus K into dt by dy. 2W is written as minus K into dt by dx. dt by ds, of course, at west face. Qs is written as minus k dt by dy at bottom phase or south phase. So if I add all these parameters together, if I do the algebraic summation of all these, I should get dpt, which we have also found out from by using the discretization method. So this is my dpt. Earlier we have found out cpt. Here is from the physics itself we can write down the expression for cpt. M, this is mass flux. M, and if I multiply mass flux by that of area, what I get? Total mass flow rate. So mass flow rate into Cp into T is a convection heat transfer. Similarly, mass flux into area, total mass flow rate. mCpt is a heat, and since we are taking mass flow rate, I can consider it as a convection heat transfer. I mean, because we get it in terms of rate. That's CPT and dpt. I am now writing the energy equation, total energy equation. So my first term was Cp into the rho T at point P at n plus 1 level minus rho T at point P at nth level upon delta T into delta Vp, plus I had Cpt. If you go back to my energy equation, first term is unsteady term, second term is a convection term. The convection term in terms of a discretized form, in the discretized form is written as Cpt, and this term is written as dpt. So I can write down the entire equation as unsteady term plus Cpt is equal to dpt. Unsteady term is shown diagrammatically here. The small control volume changes from nth time instant to that of n plus 1 time instant. Here is the diagrammatic representation of dpt, that is diffusion of heat occurring across all the phases of a control volume. Here I am sharing with you the diagrammatic representation of CPT, that is the total convection occurring across all the phases of a control volume. Now we can look at the solution. So we have this equation with us now. I have this equation with me, and I want to solve this equation to obtain the value of Tp at n plus 1 level. I want to find out, I know from initial guess or initial condition the temperature distribution, but I want to find out the new temperature distribution numerically. So I have what I have done, I have converted my equation the differential form or integral form into that of an algebraic form, and now I want to go ahead with the solution methodology for the algebraic equation which I have obtained. This equation we have obtained, I mean I have shown you this equation both mathematically we have derived, and I have also shown you physically how can we write down such equation directly if I know the physics. So the equation can be physical law-based equations. Day before yesterday, Professor Sharma talked about physical law-based equation. We need not to essentially go through the entire mathematical treatment which we have looked at. We can once, if I know this physics, we can directly write down such kind of equations. And that's the beauty of physical law-based equations. So I mean, it's simple to understand from the physics itself. So now this is my convection term and this is my diffusion term. If I write down this convection term at nth level as well as diffusion term level at nth level, it is possible for me to determine the total convection and total diffusion at a current level from the guess values or from the initial condition. So this can be determined if I apply this equation, entire equation. So this is my unsteady term, this is my convection term, this is my diffusion term, that is conduction term if it is a heat transfer. then I can determine this entire term using the current values. Using current values, I can determine phi fn. I can also determine FDT. Then what is left? Phi p is known to me from my current values. Delta t is known to me. I can decide delta t. Rho delta Vp, rho is known to me. Delta Vp is known to me from my grid generation. Delta SF is known to me from grid generation. Delta SF is known to me from grid generation. Fm is given to me. It is known to me because I know the flow field, the entire flow field. So what is left? I'm left with only one unknown. If I apply such equation to all the cell centers, I can find out new temperature distribution at all the cell centers. That is at n+1 level. Phi p value at n+1 level can be determined. Such a method of obtaining the solution is called explicit method. As I told earlier also, explicit method has got stability criteria. Now, which stability criteria is to be used? Either for convection or for diffusion. Between the two, one of the criteria has to be used. So what we can do, for diffusion problem, we have seen the stability criteria. For convection problem also, we have seen the stability criteria. We can calculate delta T from both the stability criteria, and whichever is minimum delta T, that delta T, if you use, you are bound to get the converse solution. And thus, we can find out TP at n+1 level. We can scroll through all the cell centers and we can find out TP at n+1 level for all the cells, or phi at n+1 level for all the cells. There is an implicit method also. This phi f or TF can be written at n+1 level. But when I write it in at n+1 level, I cannot calculate this phi f because I don't know the values. Similarly, FDFT is also written at n+1 level. So I don't know the values of a temperature at, or values of phi at n+1 level. But if I write this kind of equation for all the cell centers, I will have as many unknowns as the equation. For example, in this case, I can write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 multiplied by 5, that is 50 equations. And when I write down all the 50 equations, I will have 50 unknowns. Some of the unknowns will be repeated between the equations. So I will have 50 unknowns and 50 equations which I can solve simultaneously, and that's called implicit method. I can obtain the solution by solving the equation simultaneously, and thus I can find out phi p at n+1 at next level. So once I do that, I need to check for the convergence criteria whether I'm getting the same values as I used in the previous iteration. That can be done by calculating the RMS value of phi. If the RMS value is well below the accuracy criteria or convergence criteria which we decided at the beginning, then I have obtained the solution. Else I need to go back and again do the iteration and find out the new values. We need to keep on finding out the new values. I was talking about the stability criteria. For diffusion, we have the stability criteria which is called as grid Fourier number criteria. For convection, we have Courant-Frederick-Levy criteria, that is CFL criteria. The delta T for diffusion criteria is given by 0.5 upon lam into 1 by delta x square plus 1 by delta y square. Lam is a diffusion coefficient which we have talked when we dealt with the diffusion problems. And then we have the Coren-Frederick-Levy criteria, which is delta TCC stands for the convection. I mean, because I'm using it for convection. So mod of Uij upon delta x plus mod of Vij upon delta y less than equal to 1. From this I can find out TC, and between TD and TC, whichever is minimum, that I should use as delta T. So if I use delta T, which is minimum of delta TD and delta TC, I am bound to get the converse solution. So that is the solution methodology for convection diffusion problem. Now what I'm going to do, by the way, is there any question till now? There are two questions in the why the convection fluxes are outward while the diffusion shown inward in the control volume. I shall come back to this question when I finish up with with my presentation. Professor Yogesh, please wait. Is there any question, by the way? I hope I'm audible and my presentation is also visible.
Slide is not visible, sir. No.
Now it is visible?
Yes. It's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have looked at the solution methodology for convection diffusion problem, but now we will look at 1D steady state convection diffusion problem. Now you may ask me, so far we have looked at two-dimensional problem, why we are going back to one-dimensional. There is a purpose for doing this, purpose behind doing this, and the purpose is, the objective is to demonstrate the property of finite volume method for a simple problem which has got analytical solution. Through this particular problem, I'll be trying to explain you the situation in which either of the phenomena is dominant. Let's say convection is, if the convection is dominant over the diffusion, what happens? If the diffusion is dominant over the convection, what happens? That we will be trying to understand with the help of 1D steady state convection diffusion problem. If it is a 1D steady state convection diffusion problem, my governing equation changes to d by dx of rho u phi. There is no variation in the variable with respect to other directions, so the partial derivative has been converted into a total derivative. So d by dx of rho u phi is a convection term, is equal to lam phi into d2 phi by dx square. This is my conduction term. Convection is equal to conduction. So essentially the governing equation in 1D steady state represent convection equal to conduction. The density rho and u are assumed to be constant. This rho and u is assumed to be constant. So here is a one-dimensional domain in which the flow is occurring. U is constant in the one-dimensional domain. And we want to find out the value of phi, which is being convected variable. U is a convecting, U is a driver, and that U is driving that of phi. So the boundary conditions are x is equal to 0, phi is equal to phi 0. And at x equal to L, phi is equal to phi L. Physically, this represents a situation where convection is balanced by diffusion. My convection is balanced by diffusion in the streamwise direction, in the flow direction. Now, here again we can consider the example of ice and boiler placed at the two ends of the domain shown above here. Let's say there is ice at 0 degrees Celsius and there is boiler or steam at 100 degrees Celsius. When there is no flow across, when there is no flow, the temperature at the center here, temperature at the center, that is x equal to 0.5. If I consider my L is as 1, at x equal to 0.5, the temperature will be exactly that of 50 degrees Celsius. Here it is 0, here it is 100. And if there is no flow, that means there is no convection. There is no convection occurring. What is occurring is only diffusion. Because my air has, the flow has got some thermal conductivity, flow medium has got some thermal conductivity, the temperature experienced at the center will be at x equal to 0.5 will be exactly 50 degrees Celsius. However, if my Uij, that is if Uij is greater than 0, that is flow is occurring in the positive x direction, the x location at which T is equal to 50 degrees Celsius will be at x greater than 0.5. If U is large, if it is more than 0, if U is more than 0, the x location at which the temperature is equal to 50 degrees Celsius will be shifted towards right. That is, will be shifted towards x greater than 0.5. If Uij is very, very high, very large, the x location at which the temperature is equal to 50 degrees Celsius will be close to this end. And then there will be sharp rise in the temperature from 50 to 100. That is, there will be sharp temperature gradient. So this sharp temperature gradient in the flow problem gives us a platform or give us a challenging case wherein we can test our finite volume method. Similarly, when the flow is occurring in the opposite direction, that is Uij is 0, x location at which the temperature is 50 degrees Celsius will shift towards x equal to 0. And if it is very large, it will be close to that of x equal to 0. And again, there will be sharp reduction in the temperature from 50 to that of 0 degrees Celsius. So there is a sharp temperature gradient. This sharp temperature gradient provides us a challenging case wherein we can test finite volume method. For such kind of a problem, there is an analytical solution available. The analytical solution available is, or exact solution available is of this form: phi is equal to phi 0 plus e to the power x Pe divided by L, where this Pe is called a Peclet number, and it is the ratio of mass flux to that of diffusion, that is rho u into lambda by L. Rho u represents the convection and lambda by L represents the diffusion. So it is convection over that of conduction, convection over that of diffusion. So e to the power p x into Pe divided by L minus 1 upon e to the power Pe minus 1 phi L into phi L minus phi 0. This Pe is a Peclet number. Now, when this Pe is a Peclet number, when this Peclet number is 0, what does it mean? Peclet number is 0. It means my Fm is 0. It means there is no convection. And when there is no convection in this domain, my temperature distribution will be linear. You can see the red line. When Peclet number is 0, my temperature distribution is bound to be linear. However, if my Peclet number is greater than 0, or let's say less than 0, if my Peclet number is less than 0, it means it's negative. It means my flow is occurring from this end. If the flow is occurring from this end, this particular temperature phi L will be dominant over the larger portion, and then there will be sharp reduction to 0. If the flow is occurring from this end, that is Peclet number is positive, the 0 degree Celsius temperature or the ice temperature will be, or phi 0 temperature will be dominant over the large portion, and then there will be sharp increase in the temperature, or sharp increase in the value of phi. So this situation provides me the challenging test case for finite volume method. So essentially I can say my solution to such a problem is a function of Peclet number. So if I change my Peclet number, I can get different solution. So my solution depends on the Peclet number. And how do we change Peclet number? You can see in the Peclet number I have a length scale. If this length scale is reduced, this L is reduced, I can get a lower value of I can change the value of a Peclet number, and the Peclet number, and the moment Peclet number is changed, I can obtain we will see the solution obtained for such a problem. So exact solution if phi 0 is less than phi L. In case the small velocity, I mean whatever I have just not talked, it has been simply written in this particular slide. In case of a small velocity, ui and Peclet number is equal to 0, and large diffusivity, PE tends to 0, and the convection can be neglected, and the solution is linear in x direction. For ui and Peclet number very, very large, when Peclet number is large, phi grows slowly with x, and then suddenly rises to phi L. For a short distance close to x equal to L. For ui and Peclet number very, very small, or very, very less, I mean, very small compared to 0, vice versa happens. So this sudden change in the phi provides us a severe test case to obtain the solution for solution using finite volume methodology. Now let us look at the actual solution of the equation, 1D steady state convection diffusion equation using central difference scheme, and maybe also using first order Upton scheme we will see, and then we will look at the actual solution obtained. So when I make use of central difference scheme, my fundamental equation now is like this. Because it is one dimensional, I have faces east and west only. So this is my convection and this is my diffusion. Convection is balanced by that of the diffusion, and it is 1D steady state convection diffusion problem. So it is summation over the east and west face of FMF phi f delta SF is equal to summation over east west FDFT delta SF. Now this is phi E for east face and phi W for west face. Delta SF can be done away with on which is on both the sides of the equation. So I can do away with delta SF for writing a simplified equation. So FME, mass flux across east face multiplied by the variable on the east face minus this variable, of course, has to be determined using convection scheme. Here it is written in terms of a central difference scheme, phi E plus phi P divided by 2. So FME into phi E minus FMW into phi W, FMW into phi W, phi P plus phi W divided by 2 is phi W. On to other side, we have lam into phi E plus phi E minus phi P divided by delta C. This FDFT I am writing. FDFT for FDFT I am writing. I'm just doing away with delta SF. So what is left is FDFT. So which is lam into temperature gradient. So minus again lam into temperature gradient. So this phi E is now replaced using first order central difference scheme. This phi W is also replaced using central difference scheme, and this quantity is written in a simplified form as delta X is kept common in the phi E minus 2 phi P. There are 2 phi P's and plus phi W. This minus becomes pi plus, so this is plus phi W. Now what we do, we collect all the terms with that of phi p. Here phi p is with phi p is associated FME divided by 2. Here phi p is with phi p is associated minus FMW divided by 2, and here with phi p is associated 2 lam divided by delta x. So that is all collected. Those all terms are collected together, put into one bracket, and phi p is taken out of the bracket. This particular quantity I can designate it as AI, and phi p is designated as phi I. Similarly, collect all the quantities with all the terms with phi e. So here phi e is FME by 2, and then here phi e is lam by delta x. So I collect all those together, and 2 is cancelled out from the entire equation. So I have lam by delta x minus FME into delta I, phi e. So this quantity can be termed as, this is written for phi e, so I can term it as a I plus 1, and this phi e is phi I plus 1. Similarly, we can collect all the quantities with phi w, and I get the term a I minus 1, and phi w is phi I minus 1. And whatever is left, we can put it into b. Here nothing is left, so we need not to bother. B is equal to 0. So now, in this equation, AI is known to me from here, because FME, FMW, 2 lam, and delta x, all these are known to me. And I can find the phi I is unknown. I can find out it. AI plus 1 is known to me. This is AI plus 1. This is AI minus 1. Phi E and phi E and phi W, these are known to me from phi E is nothing but phi I plus 1. Phi W is nothing but phi I minus 1. These are known to me from my previous conditions, or initial conditions, or initial case when it is a steady state problem. So everything is known to me. I can find out new value of phi I. I can iteratively solve this to find out the values of phi I for different locations. For each of the locations, I can find out the values of phi I. This was a central difference scheme. I can do it for the first order of field scheme also. The equation is same. The basic equation is same. FME into phi E minus FMW into phi W is equal to lam into phi E minus phi P divided by delta x minus phi P minus phi W upon delta x. The same equation, this equation, or maybe this equation, you can see I have just picked up this equation. Now I will implement the first order of field scheme. How do I calculate phi E? I take phi small e. I take into consideration maximum of FME into and 0 into phi P minus maximum of FME comma 0 into phi E. This is my phi E. Now we have, and I can calculate phi W also. So phi W is maximum of FMW comma 0 into phi W minus maximum of minus FMW comma 0 into phi P. So one of the terms is written depending on whether the direction is positive or negative. And then this is straightforward again in the same fashion as we did it earlier. So now using these expressions, I can develop the same expression as we developed in the case of central difference scheme in the form of AI phi I is equal to AI plus 1 phi I plus 1 plus AI minus 1 phi I minus 1 plus B. What we have done here, we have collected all the terms. We have collected all the terms with that of phi P, put all those terms inside the bracket, and phi P is taken out. And phi P is nothing but my phi I, and the bracket is termed as AI. Same thing is done for phi E, same thing is done for phi W. So I can write down a simplified equation which is easy to solve. I can find out new values of phi I. Because AI plus 1 is known to me, AI is known to me, phi I plus and phi I minus 1, these are known to me from my initial conditions. AI plus 1 and AI minus 1 is known to me either from my physical description of the problem or the grid generation. And B is of course known to me. So I have this equation, I can solve this equation. I can find out, this is my AI plus, central difference scheme, if it is central difference scheme, AI plus 1 I can determine in terms of Peclet number now. This quantity these quantities are written in terms of Peclet number, because here we have FME. My Peclet number is FM upon D by L. So D is diffusion, D is a diffusion coefficient, and L is, maybe we can write it as delta X, which is a characteristic length. So I can write down that equation in terms of Peclet number. So AI plus 1 is now written in terms of Peclet number like this. Peclet number is FM into delta X by lambda. In fact, it is FM upon lambda by delta X we had written earlier. Now delta X can go to the numerator, and I can write down FM into delta X by lambda. If I use this definition of a Peclet number, I can write down expression for AI plus 1 and AI minus 1 in terms of Peclet number. The same thing I can do it for the first order of print scheme. AI plus 1 and AI minus 1 can be written in terms of Peclet number also. So now if I use these equations to obtain the solution for phi, I will share with you the solution for first order of print scheme and second and central difference scheme as we go ahead. But let me say a few words about the things which we have so far done. When FIU convection scheme is used, all the coefficients of the resulting linear algebraic equations are positive. Thus, phi I will increase with the increase in the neighboring phi value. Whereas in case of a central difference convection scheme, AI plus 1 becomes negative for Peclet number greater than 0, which results in decrease in the value of phi I for the grid with increase in the east neighboring value phi I plus 1. This results in non-physical oscillation in the results, which should be avoided. And we will look at this non-physical oscillation in the results as we look at the solution. First, let us look at the algorithm, how to solve such kind of 1D steady-state convection diffusion equation. Try to understand our objective while looking at 1D steady-state convection diffusion equation is to understand the significance of a Peclet number. We'll be coming to the significance of Peclet number once we go through this solution algorithm. So solution algorithm goes like this: enter row UI, lam, L, and number of grid points, that is Imax, and calculate delta X, which is equal to L upon Imax minus 2. We can do this step, is very straightforward and simple. Calculate all AI minus 1, AI plus 1, and AI values for which the expressions are given to you just now for first order of print scheme and central difference scheme. You can write down similar expression for SOU and QUIC, which I have not done. You can give some initial guess. Phi I is equal to 0.5 for I is equal to 2 to 6. Some kind of an initial guess, and this is phi 0 and phi L is known to you from boundary condition. So for boundary conditions, phi 1 is 0 and phi n is 1. Let's say phi is 0 here and phi L is 1 here. And in between it is 0.5 from that's the initial guess. Then I can set phi old I is equal to phi I. Whatever the values which are known to me, I am assigning it to phi old I. Then I calculate new phi, that is phi I. It is given by AI minus 1 into phi I minus 1 plus AI plus 1 into phi I plus 1 whole divided by AI. This is to be done for I is equal to 2 to 6, because we want to find out the solution for point number 2 to 6. If absolute value of phi I minus phi old I is greater than 10 to the power 0, which I can consider as a convergence criteria, which is practically 0. If it is greater than 0, go to step number 4. And then again recalculate phi I's value. If this is satisfied, your solution is arrived, and you can then print the values of X and phi 0. That X and phi. And that will be your solution. Otherwise, you need to just keep on iterating and iterating, which is called a simulation. Now here I'm sharing with you the solution for central difference scheme and first order of print scheme. which we have tried to obtain, and we have obtained the first solution for a grid size of 12 by 12. My length is 1, rho is 1, u is 1, lam is 0.02, that is given to me, phi 0 is 0, and phi l is 1. These quantities are known to me, and if the grid size is known to me, Peclet number based on the entire length, that is 1, turns out to be 50. You can calculate it. My expression for Peclet number is Fm divided by lam divided by L. So Fm is 1. So, because rho is 1, u is 1, so Fm is 1. 1 divided by 0.02, and that is again divided by 1, so that turns out to be 50. My Peclet number is calculated based on the length of the domain, which is 1. If I calculate the Peclet number based on delta x, my delta x here is so I have length is equal to 1, and my grid size is 12, so my delta x will be 1 by 10, so my Peclet number turns out to be 5. So I have 12 points, means I have 12 points along x-axis along the domain. It means I have divided the domain into 10 number of volumes. So my delta x turns out to be 1 by 10, and then based on delta x, I can calculate Peclet number is equal to 0.5. Sorry, Peclet number is equal to 5. If this is the case, the solution which we have obtained for FOU and CD is plotted here. Along x-axis, I have x coordinate, which is varying from 0 to 1, and along y-axis, we have the value of 5 plotted. You can look at the solution. For such a problem, there is, I mean, if you look at the solution given by CD, the solution oscillates when there is a sharp gradient in the temperature. At the end there is a sharp gradient in the value of 5. So there the solution oscillates, and which essentially gives me the unphysical behavior of the problem, unphysical solution which is not expected. FOU gives me the solution which is fairly matching with that of the. Let me clarify. There is an exact solution available for such kind of a problem, which goes like this, which I will be showing you in the next slide. Now this is for a Peclet number which is comparatively high. And what is high Peclet number? High Peclet number means convection is dominant. If the convection is dominant and we are using central difference scheme, I am bound to get the incorrect value of phi on the faces of the control volume, and hence my solution with central difference scheme oscillates. However, if Peclet number is fairly high, my first order scheme, what we do, we assign the value of variable at the upstream neighbor to that of the face. And if my Peclet number is high, which means convection is dominant, which means the assigning the value of variable from the upstream cell center can be really a physical, and then I get a fairly good solution with the help of FOU at higher Peclet number also. However, if I use a grid size of the order of 42 by 42, means I divide the entire domain into 40 cells, my Peclet number based on length is again same, because my length is not changing as such, but my Peclet number based on delta x, that will come down to 1.25. Earlier my delta x was 1 by 10, now my delta x is 1 by 40. So my Peclet number based on delta x turns out to be 1.25. If I use these parameters and calculate Peclet number, it turns out to be 1. Now what is the significance of low Peclet number? Low Peclet number means it is low, it's not 0. 0 means there is no convection. But Peclet number of the order of 1 means convection and diffusion both are equally dominant. It means diffusion is also there, diffusion is present there. And if the diffusion is present there, that means if we use central difference scheme, it should work. If the diffusion is not only present, but it is dominantly present, it is equally present, it means my central difference scheme should work. Now look at the solution. For central difference scheme, I am again obtaining the solution which is very close to exact. The oscillations which we obtained earlier have disappeared in this case. So when the diffusion is dominant, it is recommended to make use of a central difference scheme. When the convection is highly dominant, we may use first order convection scheme. Here, although my first order convection scheme is giving solution which is close to the exact solution, but it is not as close as the solution obtained by central difference scheme. So whenever there is a dominant diffusion, it is recommended to make use of a central difference convection scheme. Whenever there is dominant convection, it is recommended to make use of first order scheme. But mostly the quick convection scheme is used by the researchers to obtain the solution, which gives you better solution. Even though even with your Peclet number varies from low to high value. We have not worked with the quick convection scheme or the second order Opwind scheme to obtain the solution for 1D steady state convection diffusion problem, but participants can take up this and they can work out, they can write their own code and obtain the solution. But so the same thing which I have just knocked out is written here. The central difference scheme exhibit severe oscillations which disappears on fine grid as Peclet number becomes less than 2. No oscillations occurs if Peclet number is less than 2 at every node. This is sufficient but not the necessary condition for the boundedness of the solution. The oscillation appears only when the solution changes rapidly in the region of a high Peclet number. First order Opwind scheme overcomes the problem of oscillations as it is unconditionally satisfies the bond and boundedness criteria. While it is robust, it also introduces excessive numerical diffusion, resulting in poor accuracy, especially for convection dominated flow. For example, the result of FOU for Peclet number equal to 50 matches with the exact solution for Peclet number equal to 18 also. So some kind of a numerical inaccuracy is given by the first order Opwind scheme. Thus, the stable numerical solution is obtained at the price of truncation errors, which increases with the increase in the strength of convection. So truncation error actually increases with that of increase in the strength of convection. Hence, the quest for optimal convection discretization procedure continues. The promising schemes, as I said, are SOU and quick convection schemes are highly promising. Quick has been found better as compared to that of SOU convection scheme by many researchers. There is plenty of literature available about the convection scheme and the use of convection schemes to various problems, and people have obtained a better solution using quick convection scheme. So let us look at the solution for the slug flow problem, which we decided to solve at the beginning. I mean, by considering this problem only, we try to understand the finite volume methodology for convection diffusion problem. So let us also look at the solution obtained. The algorithm can be written like this. Enter the inputs, material property, geometric parameters, maximum number of control volumes in X and Y direction, boundary conditions which are required for input boundary conditions, and epsilon value, which is a convergence criteria. Do the grid generation, set delta T from the stability criteria, calculate the mass flux FME, FMW, FMN, and FMS. The expressions are given here. You can calculate the mass fluxes across each of the faces of all the cell centers. Set the initial condition for phi ij. Set the boundary condition for phi. Once we set the boundary conditions and initial conditions, we know all 5ij's, and all those 5ij's are assigned to 5 old ij. Then we can calculate phi f for all the faces of all the cell centers. Once we do that, we can calculate Cij using this expression. So similarly, we can calculate the total diffusion at all the cell centers. Dij, dpt, which we said while dealing with while looking at the finite volume methodology. CPT, which we said can be calculated like this. So CPT and DPT, if it is known to me, I can calculate new value of phi ij. So phi ij will be, my CPT is onto the other side of the equation, left-hand side of the equation, which I have taken onto other side. And Dij is already onto that side. So, and so what I do, I just multiply Cij plus Dij with that of delta T upon rho delta Vij. And phi old ij was onto other side of the equation, is now taken onto that side. It was negative there, this has become positive here. So I can calculate phi ij now. So once by using this equation, now I can now see for Cij, of course, we will be using the convection schemes. So thus I can find out new values of phi ij's. I can scroll through all the points. I can find out all the values of phi ij's. And once I do that, I can find out RMS phi. If this RMS phi is less than epsilon, my solution is arrived. If not, I need to go back to maybe step number 7. I can keep on iterating and find out the new values always for phi ij, and thus I can obtain the solution for phi ij. So this particular solution algorithm has been implemented, and the solution is plotted here. The symbols show the analytical solution. Analytical solution is available in the book by Vermister. This is a book on convective heat transfer written in 1983, and the same analytical solution has been used to obtain the solid lines, the symbols here. The results are plotted at different x upon h values. That is, x upon h is changing from 2, 6, 12, and 18. So this is, the black one is for 18. So you can see when my section is closer, the variation in the temperature is very high. That is maximum temperature. So temperature is plotted here with respect to y. At a section, let's say x by h is equal to 2, then x by h is equal to 6, x by h is equal to 12, and x by h is equal to 18. So if I go further and further, you can see my temperature distribution flattens. This is at x by h equal to 18. If I go in the downward direction, the downstream direction, my temperature distribution flattens, and that's the obvious result. At the entrance, you can see, say, the temperature, there is a severe temperature gradient. So that gives me the understanding that the finite volume methodology which we have, and the solution is of course matching with that of the analytical solution, exactly matching with that of the analytical solution. So of course we have made use of a quick convection scheme in this particular problem, and we have obtained a better solution for phi. Phi is I mean here it is theta. In fact, theta is nothing but it's a non-dimensional temperature. Temperature is non-dimensionalized as, here it is T minus T infinity upon TW minus T infinity. So that is my theta. So it is, we have plotted theta here, which changes from 0 to 1. And you can see the temperature distribution flattens as we go ahead in the downstream direction. And that's the obvious result also. So the finite volume methodology which we have so far adopted is working well for the convection diffusion problem as well. So thus we come to an end of convection diffusion problem in computational fluid dynamics and heat transfer. If you have any kind of question, please go ahead. I will try to answer the questions. Is it possible for sharp gradients? Yes, it is possible. And Professor Yogesh, your question was why the convection fluxes are outward while the diffusion fluxes are. You know, convection and diffusion fluxes are onto different side of the equation. So if we take one as positive, other has to be taken as negative. So because of which we have shown the directions in the opposite fashion. Professor Rana Robo, is it possible for a sharp gradients practically? So that I have already shown you the distribution. Yes, it is possible practically also to capture the sharp temperature gradients, and that's what I have tried to explain you through these graphs. The temperatures, so sharp gradients can also be captured with the help of a finite volume methodology if we use appropriate convection scheme. Sorry. Is there any question by the participant? Can fine grid gives more diffusion because of a small Peclet number? Your Peclet number becomes small, so in a small region we can have a better diffusion. So that better diffusion can be captured. You are true. So please say once again about the test. Test will be I will be sending you the test. Are you talking about test examination, Meenakshi Ghosh? Yeah, we'll be sending you the test paper. I mean, we'll be sending you the Google form in which there will be around 25 questions with multiple choice questions which you will have to answer, and your answers will be assessed, and based on that you will be issued the certification. You'll be given the certificate. Is there any question? Please go ahead. I will love to answer the questions. Diffusion spreads equally in all the directions, then how we can show the direction to diffusion? I mean, you look at the central difference scheme. So, although it spreads in equally in all the direction, but its dominance may be low or high compared to that of the convection. And how can we show a direction to diffusion? Yeah, direction is important. I mean, something is coming towards the something is crossing the boundary. In which direction it is crossing the boundary is important, and hence we need to show the direction to diffusion also. I mean, heat transfer phenomena, although it is like occurring with that of diffusion, but heat transfer has a certain direction. It occurs in a particular direction, so we must take into consideration the direction. I hope I have answered to your question. Can you please send us the ANSYS workbench doc file used in yesterday's session? I will request Professor Saugule to do that. I will ask him, I will talk to him, and we'll get back to you. Sir, in implicit method, for every term there is unknown right in a single equation. Yes, but if you look at the total number of unknowns, each equation may have more than one unknown. But if you look at all the equations together, you will have as many unknowns as the equation number, as many equations are there. So implicit method always provides you the opportunity to solve the simultaneous equation. You look at it carefully, look at the equations carefully. If you expand all the equations, and if you put all those neighboring cell center values which are used to calculate the convective variable on the faces, you will find that the total number of unknowns in all the equations together does not increase that of the number of yellow cell centers. In a single equation, you may have more than one. In a single equation, you may have more than one unknown. But together, if you consider all the equations, you will not have the unknowns more than the number of equations. Is there any question, by the way, now? You can ask verbally also. No question? If there are no questions, maybe we will stop the meeting. Shall I stop the meeting in that case? Sir, is there any WhatsApp group of this FDP? No, I have not created any WhatsApp group, Professor Rajnikant. The WhatsApp group is essentially not required as such, I don't think. That's my opinion. Maybe you will differ. But if you have any kind of query, you can always write a mail. My mail ID is there with you. If possible, please send the PPT or video recording. I will send the PPTs. My PPTs will be shared with you. Maybe tonight I will share those PPTs. Few minor changes are required, and hence I am holding back. The recorded videos will be sent to you. I will have to share those recorded videos through Google Drive. We'll do that. Can FEM give solution without FDM for transient problems? Yes, FEM gives the solution for transient problems. I mean, FDM is also, FDM has got a different limitations. I mean, the conservation law, it is difficult to adopt the conservation laws using FDM when my problem geometry is complex. This was discussed by Professor Atul Sharma also day one when he talked about difference between FEM and FDM. FEM provides you the transient solution. That's what we have seen just now. Transient solution. I have shared with you the transient solution yesterday. Is there any question? There are no questions, then we shall leave the meeting and we will come back at 2:30 to at 2:30 there will be session by Professor Nagesh Togale. We'll be talking about the ANSYS platform. So thank you very much, all of you, for patience listening. I'm leaving the meeting for now and will be back by 2:30. Thank you very much.